Hi, everybody. How are you doing? Thanks for being here. I'm Dr. Gail, and this is Barbara Lamb. And Barbara, it's always great having you here. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Is that
Okay.
that's, I hear some background noise. Or is that something background noise in your? Do you have another website open or something?
No,
Okay.
but I'm going to turn off my phone.
Oh, there you go. That might have been what I was hearing.
And it wasn't doing anything, but um,
I just
just
heard some background like interference. Hey, Suzanne. Hey, Teresa. Hey, Faith. Thanks for being here today. So we're going to be talking about Barbara's interesting sessions that she's had. But Barbara, go ahead and tell everybody about yourself. Tell who
okay.
you are, what you do, your history. Hey, MJ, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm Barbara Lamb, and I have done many years uh, of regression therapy work. I started out as a past life regression therapist. And even before that, I started out as a licensed psychotherapist. Uh, and then I got into the past life regression work, which was very fascinating. And then that evolved. And in 1991, I started regressing people who had had encounters with extraterrestrial beings. So since 1991, I've done a few thousand, probably at least 5,000 regressions to people's experiences with the extraterrestrial beings. So that's the main part of my work these days, although I still do past life regressions and regressions for all kinds of different reasons that people have, things that they are wondering about themselves. But the extraterrestrial work has a special place in my heart because it's opened up so much about reality, about even different dimensions of reality, and of course about the whole cosmos, which is full of life. Although many people here on Earth, have not really been aware of that. And I grew up thinking that we were the only life in existence.
Didn't we
And
all?
yeah, yeah, we probably all did. And I know a lot of people, even nowadays, uh, wonder or assume that we are the only life, the only conscious life, intelligent life. But that is certainly not the case. I have been finding out bit by bit. So there are the standard types of experiences that people have with extraterrestrials that many people hear about, and and they happen to plenty of the people whom I do regressions with. And by standard, I mean they're taken and they are examined on a table, and maybe samples are taken from their body, their hair, their skin, different secretions, etc. And then eggs are taken from many females and combined with sperm that is taken from many males and combined by the beings into an embryo. And then they add their extraterrestrial genetics to the embryo and creating a hybrid. So a lot of my work has involved the hybrid babies, that is, human people whom I regress who have had hybrid babies, whether they have been consciously aware of it or not. So that has been a very fascinating
Can
aspect.
I ask you a question? I hate to interrupt you, but I've got this question on my mind. And
Okay.
okay, so your work has taken you doing hypnotherapy to regression therapy and a little bit of it to do with extraterrestrials. What is the difference to say somebody's coming in and having wanting to explore, some being that they have been around versus somebody who's coming in and saying, "Barbara, I want to lose weight." how do those sessions differ? Probably a lot of people want to hear the difference of those kind of sessions.
Oh, and there is a big difference too. For many, many years, when I was in my psychotherapy practice, I did the kind of hypnosis that would help people to lose weight, or whatever they wanted to change,
Stop,
maybe
stop
get
smoking
rid
at that time.
of fights or whatever. And that hypnosis is different in the sense that that's the kind of hypnosis where I am giving them suggestions to program in the kind of change that they want. And I always met with a person one or two times before I did that hypnosis to be sure that I would be giving them the suggestions that would be what they really want help with. And so would usually use a 3 or 4 block of sessions with the hypnosis in the last session to program in exactly what would be most helpful. And I found out from feedback from many of those people that that kind of hypnosis was extremely helpful. However, regression hypnosis is really different, because I guide the person into a nice state of deep relaxation and suggest that they go back to whatever it is that they are wondering about in terms of extraterrestrial experience. Usually, the person has told me of 1 or 2 or 3 events that they've had that seem very peculiar, and that they've been wondering about, maybe sometimes for decades. They've been wondering. In other words, a person might wonder about light coming into the room in the middle of the night, into their bedroom, or little lights flying around in the bedroom, or a sense of very bright light right outside the window, as if from some object up there, even if they're on a high floor of the building that they're living in. Or they might wake up to realize that there's a presence in the room, and then as they look around with their eyes that are just opening, they notice that there are beings there in the room, and they're not human beings. And the beings usually come closer to the bed. Sometimes they're looking right over the person, as if into the person's eyes. And it's all very mysterious and often quite frightening, startling at least. And then they usually don't remember very much after that, maybe another moment or two. But those kinds of experiences really make an impact on the person. And the person might be wondering about that experience for many years, decades even. And finally, they come for a regression to find out what happened, what more was there to that experience that they had not been consciously aware of. Or the person might have been driving or riding in a car, and they saw a bright light up ahead, and the car motors started to peter out, and they pulled off the road, and then they noticed that that bright light was really close and on the ground now, and that there were beings in it who were coming toward the car. Or they might not have even remembered that much of the experience. They might have just been driving along, and suddenly what they were aware of is that it was maybe 2 hours later, or they were deposited somehow further along the road they'd been driving on, and they had missing time. So missing time is one of the big clues that somebody might have one of these extraterrestrial encounters.
So
We
let me
go
get
what
let me get this simple from my brain to hopefully everybody else's. So if you're going to hypnotherapy for something like smoking or dieting or something like that, it takes several sessions for you to get there, and then you're the one giving suggestions. When somebody's
Right.
coming to get hypnotherapy to regress to a event, that's usually like maybe one session, or is that multiple sessions also?
Well, very often it's one session, but in some cases, the person wants to come back to explore another
Right.
incident and another and another. So there are people, especially in the 1990s, I had clients who lived close enough to me within an hour of where I was in California to come to me quite a number of times. One person came over a period of 11 years and probably did about 60 regressions to different extraterrestrial experiences, which she had had. Another lady came and over a period of years and probably did maybe 30 regressions to different extraterrestrial encounters. Uh, and there were a few more too who came quite a number of times. Nowadays, a person usually comes for one session, but they are welcome to, and sometimes do, come back to explore another incident that they have been wondering about. Sometimes, once they open the door to these kinds of things happening to them, they remember more unusual incidents and begin to wonder about them. So sometimes they will come back for another regression or two, but it's okay if they come for just one.
Okay. So then go into your most interesting ones. And I'm going to, if you don't talk about one of them, I'm going to bring you back to that one. Because I thought when you told me about it, I think it was last time I went, oh, we're going to have to talk about that one. So let me say hello to some people that are coming in here first, and then we'll get into your most interesting things. So let me see who all is coming in.
Okay.
Hey, Suzanne. Hey, Teresa. Thanks, Teresa, for putting that information out there. Hey, Faye Cole. Hey, Emmy J. Hey, Patricia. Hey, Linda. Hey, Hypnicity. Hey, In-Car. Yeah, there it is, Teresa. Thank you. Please remember to like and subscribe to both channels. Thank you, Teresa. Hey, Son of Watt. Thanks for being here. Whoop, I didn't mean to put you up there on display. Let's see who else is here. Hey, Christy Storms, thanks for being here. Hey, Kat. Oh, hey, Medium Kim. Thanks for being here. I hope you're feeling better. Hey, White Dragon. Hey, Rush. Hey, Kat. Thanks for being here. Hey, Barbara. Let's see who else has come in. Everybody's saying hello to each other. Hey, Amanda Carroll. Hey, Nancy Jean. Thanks for being here. Your show with Terry was really good. So I enjoyed hearing the two of you together. Okay, now let's get into those interesting ones.
Okay, well, there's such a variety of things that happen to people with extraterrestrials because there are a lot of different types of extraterrestrials who do come and have encounters with people. And all of these extraterrestrial groups have their own agendas. So there's quite a variety of things that happen to people who are taken for these experiences. So I'm going to start with a woman who we found out is a star seed. And she was taken on one of these occasions to a planet, definitely not Earth. And on that planet, there were many, many other people, mostly women she saw. And there were two groups, particularly, she was taken to visit, who were doing different kinds of things. And one of the groups was a group of women who looked quite human, but not exactly human, but more of the human type than many of the extraterrestrial beings are. Anyway, this group of women she was taken to were there were about maybe 40 of them in an outdoor setting, and they were all doing the same kind of movement, ritual movement, which she thought was quite like our Tai Chi movement that people do often in groups, particularly in China. And so she watched these women do this wonderful work, very, very graceful, very flowing, very peaceful. And she had a vague sense of familiarity about it, but had never done anything like that in her life on Earth. But after a while, they invited her to join them in doing that ritual movement. And she did. She followed along and realized quite soon that she could do it perfectly well, that somehow being amongst them, a memory seemed to come back about how to do that beautiful ritual movement. And then at the end of it, some of the beings came and around her and greeted her and said, "Welcome back. You were one of us. You did this movement with us long ago." And so you realize that she had been there as one of them in a different lifetime. And that was very rewarding
Did she
to
just
her.
did she describe them? Because when you're talking about it, I have these images coming into my head about these angel-looking like women with brown hair, but their eyes are big, but they're so lucid that you don't hardly see any color. So while you're talking about these beings are popping in my head, and I'm going, "Are these the same people?" Yeah, that she was among, since they come in so strongly. I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I wonder if these are the women."
Well, they might have been because that sounds very much like her description. They all, well, they were women and they were quite tall and slim, and they had long hair
Mhm.
of different colors. Uh,
Oh, these are, I'm just seeing
some
brown.
some blonde, some brown. But anyway, yeah, but and their eyes were definitely bigger than our eyes are. And they had whites and pupils. They were really, except for the eyes and the height, uh, she would have easily thought that they were human people.
Right, and these ones I see exactly the same. If it wasn't for their eyes, they would look human.
Right. And they were very lovely. She was very pleased to be with them, and even more pleased to realize that she had been one of them in a recent previous lifetime. So they were just letting her, they were taking her from Earth on that occasion to let her know that. And they knew that she was here on Earth in this lifetime to help raise the consciousness of humanity wherever she could, and was busy doing that kind of work. So it was really a very, very nice sort of reaffirming experience to her about being a starseed and being here to help. It's all very voluntary. So then
Do
there was,
anything with that afterwards? Does she, that information, does she do any kind of work, or how did that change her life?
well, of course, the beings reaffirmed that she had been one of them and that they were very closely working with her, whether she realized it or not,
Okay.
inspiring her, giving her thoughts to share here on Earth, giving her messages, giving her downloads of information at some times. And they just thought that she would be enhanced by knowing consciously her connection with them, not only in the past, but in the ongoing sense in her life now.
Right, she's probably more receptive to the messages because she knew them.
Yes, 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 that she could more fully trust them, trust what she was getting in her mind. So it really was a very wonderful, affirming experience. And there was a starseed man, too, who was taken to a planet by beings. And in that planet, they put him in some sort of a vehicle, kind of like a car, but it was flying. It didn't drive along a road. And that planet had very, very high peaks and many buildings up on the high peaks, not as much down on the low ground. Anyway, the beings who, again, looked fairly human, although a little bit different. These were male beings in his case, and they took him in this vehicle up to a very high cliff area. There was sort of a building built into the side of the cliff and a balcony sticking out. They landed on the balcony and went in. It was rather like a restaurant, and various people sitting around and eating and drinking something. And then they took him to other facilities that were all very, very high up on these cliffs. And he asked at some point, after visiting several places, why are you taking me? I'm glad to see all these places, but why are you taking me here? And they said, because you were one of us previously, and we're giving you the ability to remember your lifetime, in fact, several lifetimes with us as one of us. And they didn't, as usual, didn't give the name of their species, but they certainly let this man be acquainted with them and get to see them in different situations that they were living in on this planet. Anyway,
So they didn't tell him it was because I feel like it was Venus. They didn't tell him that. They didn't
they
tell him
didn't.
it was that.
They didn't. No, they didn't tell him what the name of the planet was, and they didn't tell him what the name of them
Hmm.
was. But he just did become very nice and acquainted with them. It was fascinating for him. It was not frightening. It was surprising, but not frightening. Although when they first appeared in his room in the middle of the night, he was a bit frightened because it was unknown. He had no idea who they were or why they were there or what they were going to do, as is the case with most people who are visited by beings. But
Do you
it
find
turned out
that
that
you find the majority of people are being visited by their family? Is that what the majority are being visited by? You think?
no, I don't think so. I think, well, in my awareness, that's more rare that they are visited by the family that they were part of. Uh, but yeah, it's different in every single case.
Okay.
One of the reasons why it's so fascinating to me, I just never know
Yeah.
what's going to come out, nor does the person. Yeah. So then there's a whole other category of things that happen very frequently when people are taken by these beings, and that is the healings that happen. So there was a man, I regressed to a boyhood experience that he had had. Um, and as a boy, he had loads of allergies. And he would sneeze and run, and his nose would run and drip and clog up and uh, sneeze, to almost anything here on Earth, anything growing here
Mhm.
on, including animal hairs. So the poor boy really suffered. Anyway, he did grow up to be a man and eventually came for a regression. And he went back to an experience to when he was about a teenager, still with these allergies. And what he experienced in the regression was that he was lying on a medical table, and there were these very unusual beings all around the table, leaning over him. And one being to his left seemed to be a female, was particularly working with his sinuses, it seemed, his whole nose sinus area, and was sort of manipulating the area and then sending light into the area and healing. And of course, he, as a teenager in this experience, was completely baffled about what was going on. And they knew that. And they reassured him that they were doing something to heal these fierce allergies. And indeed, the man reported, after that experience as a teenager, he was not troubled with allergies ever again.
Lucky him.
Yes. So that was absolutely wonderful. There was a man I know as a friend, and eventually he did a regression because he knew he'd had lots of experiences with these unusual beings. So when he was a younger man, and working and being very, very stressed with very high demand work, high demand intellectually, and he got to a point, I think he was in about his 30s, when he was just completely exhausted and just never seemed to be able to catch up on the rest that he needed. And he set out the thought, I really need help with this. I'm so exhausted that I can hardly get up and go to work and function. And one of those nights, beings came, and they, as he described it, they rolled something up over him like a roller of light.
Oh, okay.
Well, he was lying right there in bed in his own home. They didn't take him anywhere for this. And anyway, they rolled this light over him from his toes right up through his legs and his torso and neck and head, face. And it felt really, really good. He just sort of, sort of relaxed into it. And then they left, or he wasn't aware of them anymore at a certain point in time. But when he woke up a few hours later, the next morning, he felt really invigorated and good and whole and healthy and energized, and went to work. And that energized feeling lasted for years.
It did. I was going to ask you about that because I was going, because all of us, even like if we go on vacation, it only lasts, you're back at work, and within 24 hours, you're right back with your stress and everything. So it lasted for years with him, that kind of treatment.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And the first person who ever came to me in 1991 for regressions to these peculiar experiences, she found during the series of regressions we did on one of these that she went back to a time when she'd had a really severe ear infection. It was just terrifically painful. And whatever medicine the doctor had given her just didn't seem to relieve it at all. So one night she was lying in bed and was aware in the middle of the night that there were 3 beings that came into the room. And of course, she was frightened at first, but they rolled her over onto her side with the infected ear side upward. And then she was aware that there were these long white fingers from beings coming in, tinkering.
It kind of freak you out.
With her ear.
Yeah.
She couldn't move, but she could just roll her eyes around and see them. And she was just letting it happen and went right on back to sleep. And then when she woke up in the next morning, lo and behold, all of that ear pain was gone and remained gone as
Yeah.
well. So she had really been healed by them.
Let me ask you about the healing things, because I've experienced a lot of healings and doing healings and things like that. And you talked about the light, and you've talked about lights many times. And I question about sound, because I have not been involved as much with sound as I have with light. And so, what are your findings with that? With the healing? Are people talking about the sounds that they're hearing, or are they being put in sound baths? Are they doing like singing bowls for people? Because I haven't seen that. I've only seen light, always light being used.
Right. I have not heard of the other means either. They
Okay.
do seem to use light very effectively, because that same young woman who had the ear infection healed by the beings at home. There was another occasion when she was out driving with her sister in the afternoon, and she had had a lot of back pain, lower back pain, that just didn't seem to go away no matter what she did about that. But they were aware as they were driving that there was a blue beam of light coming from up in the sky, but coming through the back window of the car. And then the car started to slow down. The motor began to sort of die out, and they pulled off the road. And not knowing what was going on, they got out of the car and ran across the field that happened to be right there. And as they were running across the field to get away from this blue beam,
They're getting away from it. Okay, they weren't running towards it. Okay.
yeah, because the blue beam was following them now, that not only when they were in the car, but as they were out of the car and running across the field. And my client stopped running because the blue beam was directly hitting her lower back, where she had been having that ongoing back pain. And it just felt so good, so soothing, that she stopped to, just receive it. Her sister kept running. And anyway, after a very short time, a few minutes, the beam seemed to retract, and she was left there standing in the field, but realizing that her back felt perfectly good.
And thanking her sister for helping her.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh,
So she beckoned to her sister to come on. And they did. They went back to the car, and the car motor started. The blue beam was completely gone. And they drove on and did whatever they were intending to do in the first place. But
I'd have been fussing at my sister if that had been her running. You didn't come back for me. You didn't help me.
right, I mean, his sister just, was reacting to fear and mystery.
Yeah, I know, but it's still, I'd have been harassing her all the way. You left me behind.
But the one of the wonderful things about that is that the sister was a witness
Yeah.
to the blue beam of light, the car stopping, the blue beam following her sister, my client, and healing her. I love it when there are witnesses. There are a number of cases that I know of, people I've worked with, where somebody witnessed some of this, which is very, very helpful.
And that gets to me to the one that you told me about the man watching his wife in bed. I thought that was extremely interesting. I'm going, do you want to go there, Barbara? Talk about that? Can you talk about that?
Sure, sure. This came to me very, very early in my work involving extraterrestrials. So I met a couple one day at a conference, and the husband told me about this experience that he and his wife had had, which really opened my eyes. The experience was that they were lying in bed at night, as usual, And then he woke up in the middle of the night, realizing that there were three quite large male figures with male builds anyway, um, right there by the bed. And one of them was having sex with his wife. Now, his wife seemed to be unconscious, but she also seemed to be having an enormous amount of pleasure. So, anyway, he was really shocked and he got up out of bed, to get rid of these three intruders. And he realized that they were not human, they were reptilian beings, which he had only just vaguely heard of. And then they sort of zapped him so that he fell down with his upper body across the bed and unable to move, but still conscious. And he observed this sexual action going on. And he was close enough with his face to notice that the penis of this reptilian male had an extra little flange on it, and that was what seemed to be pleasuring his wife. And she seemed to be having a wonderful time, although her eyes were closed. She probably thought this was her husband doing this wonderful action.
Or was just dreaming.
But the beings said, we thank, they said to the man, we thank you and your woman very much. You have given us several children, in other words, hybrid children, which they had not been aware of. And now we are going to be fixing your wife so that you can have your own children. And they had indeed been struggling for a few years to conceive a baby and had not been able to. And whatever medical help they had sought just had not helped. But the reptilians were offering to help them with that. And indeed, they did help, because that couple, after that experience, went on to conceive a baby, brought him to full term, and then another baby brought him to full term. And those boys were late in their teenage years by the time I met them all. So they all
wow, it's been that many years. Well, how did he deal with that? Because because she was unconscious and she didn't know what was happening to her, and she only heard about it, so she didn't even remember feeling it or what went on. But he witnessed it, so that
Right.
would be very traumatic for him, I would think. And
it was.
and so how did he handle that?
Well, he just sort of got used to it. This was in the days before there was really anybody he could find to talk to about it. And he
Right.
was grateful to find me to talk to about it. Yeah, he particularly accepted it all when he realized that they could conceive their own baby, and that he had been told that they were helping her reproductively with that, to be able to conceive a baby. And so as the time went on, and that baby developed in her womb and was born and was a healthy baby and healthy, normal baby. And the second one came along, as the years went on until I met them, when the boys were teenagers. He adjusted more and more to that event having happened. And it didn't seem like it happened again. They were not aware of that happening another time.
Did they ask about the agenda, why these reptilians were wanting to hybrid children? Did y'all even approach that information?
No, no. And the beings just said to him, we are so appreciative of you, for contributing, even though they
Mhm.
didn't know they were contributing. So they must have taken sperm from him,
Right. That's what I was thinking. They were
eggs from her.
they were doing something to him, and he didn't remember any of that.
No. So apparently they had hybrid children on the ship of these beings
Mhm.
without having realized that previously.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was extremely interesting, and I was going, you have to talk about that one. Have you had any other regressions that have anything similar to that situation, where there was a witness to something like that else happening to somebody else?
No, but I have definitely had regressions where the person was on the ship and was having sexual intercourse with one of the beings. And in one of those cases, the man had been taken, and he was taken to a special room, which looked quite like a bedroom. This was on the ship, and there was a big bed, more like a table, but sort of a bed. And he was on that bed, and then into the room came a really exotic, incredibly gorgeous female being. He assumed it was a human being, very, very exotic looking, but absolutely gorgeous looking. And she mounted this table bed situation and began having sex with him. And he was really delighted, actually, because she was so ravishing
Yeah.
looking. And that in itself was very stimulating. But halfway through the act, her whole look changed and her real look became apparent. And she was a reptilian
Oh,
female. And at that point, he really freaked out. He was very traumatized. In fact, he was so traumatized that he could not even perform with his own wife back at home after that for quite a number of years.
oh, wow.
Yeah, which
Of course,
she was not happy about that at all.
and he
Um,
probably couldn't talk about it or didn't talk about it.
no, he didn't remember the experience. He had
Oh, okay. Okay.
all he knew was that they had been at a restaurant one night and he went out to the car in the parking lot to get his cigarettes and he was taken from there. There was a missing time experience that once in the restaurant were wondering, well, where is he? You know, he's gone for a while, much longer than just to get his cigarettes. And they returned him to the parking lot. And eventually, after this traumatic experience, and eventually he went into the restaurant seeming like he was just dazed and out of it. I mean, and they said, where were you for, why were you gone for so long? He said, I don't know. Must have been the cocktails, you know.
So what brought him to you then? How did you meet him or he decide that he needed or found somebody that could help him?
Well, what triggered it for him was that he knew nothing about a whole lifetime of ET experiences. But one day he was walking in the middle of the day, walking along uh, in his town, and they walked past a model shop, you know, where they make they sell models that you can put together. And so we went past the window and noticed in the window that there was a box and a model of a particular kind of UFO. And as he went by and noticed it, he said, "Oh, that's a sport model. I know that one." He was walking with a friend,
Mhm.
and the friend said, "What do you mean you know that?" And he said, "Well, I don't know, but I just know it." And so he went in and he bought that kit to put together that sport model UFO. And that began to bring back little glimpses of memories that he had something to do with that sport model UFO, that it seemed so completely familiar to him when he saw the model. So then he began to really wonder, why was that so familiar? Why did he have a sense of knowing that? And then he began to think more of, about some of these experiences that he'd had, like the missing time at the restaurant and many, many other experiences too, that he put together in his mind gradually over a period of time. And after a year or so of doing this, he said, I need to get to the bottom of this, why these kinds of memories are coming back and why it seems so familiar to me. And I don't remember how he found me, but he did, thank goodness, to do that kind of work with him. We worked together for, probably 8 years or so, and to quite a number of experiences. And then it turned out, to our surprise, that his wife had also been having extraterrestrial encounters that she had not recognized as such either. So between the two of them, it came out that they had quite a number of experiences. Usually they were separate from each other experiences.
Were they both reptilians that they were having experiences with?
Quite a number of different kinds of beings.
Okay.
For different purposes, not always reptilians. And then she was the one who was taken, we found out in regression with her. She had been taken aboard a ship and put into what she called a pod. It was like a bathysphere, round container with a window toward the top.
What did you call it?
She called it a pod.
And what did you call it? You said something about a sphere.
Oh, a bathysphere.
Batho, B-A-T-H-O, sphere?
Right, the kind that goes down into the ocean.
Yeah, I didn't know what the name of that. I mean, I've been in one, and I didn't know what the name of it was.
Oh, okay. And although she just called it a pod.
Yeah.
And beings came and took her and undressed her and put her into the pod, which was almost completely full of a special liquid that she could breathe. And she found there she was submerged in it. And she thought she'd be, drowning. But no, it turned out she could breathe it. It was that special fluid. And she rode in that pod. It seemed to her like it was about 2 days. And every once in a while, the window was sort of toward the top of this pod that she was in. Every once in a while, a face, an extraterrestrial face, would look in on her, just like checking up, is she okay? And she was okay. It was very, very comfortable, just floating around in there, breathing in the liquid, very soft, very supportive feeling. Although she wondered, what is this and what's going to happen? And so after what she thought was a couple of days, the pod was opened and she was taken out because a lot of the fluid spilled out, and she coughed out a lot of the fluid that she had been breathing in. But anyway, they dried her off and they put her in a robe, kind of, she said, reminded her of a friar's robe. And the hood came up and came out a few inches in front of her face, so that, in other words, somebody from either side wouldn't be able to see her face. And then she realized, as all this was going on, that there were 4 other pods all in a row in the same ship, and somebody was being taken out of each one of those. They too were coughing up this fluid that they'd been breathing in were being dried off and put into a robe with that hood and a sash around the waist. And then they were led along a long, long hallway, one after the other, not being able to see each other's faces, led by a being who also had that kind of robe on, and a long, long corridor. And at a certain point, it ended up in a big amphitheater sort of room. She figured they were on a spaceship. And in the amphitheater room, there were rows and rows of chairs and tables in front of the chairs, and delegates sitting at them, beings from all over the cosmos. She could just barely see some of their faces and realize that they were definitely not human. And she was led up to about the third or fourth level and put in a seat that apparently had been reserved for her, with like a table and cloth in front of it. And there she was, part of a delegation from planet Earth to this big intergalactic council meeting.
So she was a delegate from Earth.
She was a delegate from Earth. Now, she had not consciously known that in her life.
Right.
But here she was, and she was able to be aware of the discussions that were going on. Now, down on the floor level in the center of this amphitheater were two or three different types of beings who seemed to be chairing the meeting and the discussion among all these different delegates from different species. And they were discussing the problem with planet Earth. And the problem was that they had done so much to create human beings way back in time. And they realized that they had made a mistake in creating the humans, because they had added too much of the genetics of aggressivity and warlikeness and one over the other and power grabbing. And they could see that this was a huge problem for planet Earth, and planet Earth could blow itself up at any time because of these qualities that enough of the human beings had. So then the dilemma that they were discussing is, we go by the principle of non-interference. So we don't want to interfere here with humanity. But on the other hand, we don't want them to be so aggressive that they'll blow themselves up and ruin their civilization and ruin their planet and contaminate our planet, which they are capable of doing. So that was the dilemma being discussed. They wanted the opinion.
She didn't hear the solution then.
The human delegates. Well, they obviously didn't come to a really good.
Well, it seems like the solution has been right now for them to monitor anything that would destroy the Earths that they are, involved in.
Yes,
dismantling those things.
Right. They apparently figured that was justifiable enough, not to go and change the genetics of humans, as they had been discussing as a possibility, but to at least turn off the nuclear weapons.
Now, we hear all the time that people are talking about, we're getting all this information and all these upgrades and DNA changes that are coming in to us now. Do you think that might be what is going on, as they are upgrading us and moving us away from that warlike, personality? Do you think?
Well, they might be, but at least we do know for sure. We do have evidence. We do have witnesses that in many cases they have turned off the nuclear
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
bombs that are waiting in our nuclear silos. And they have done that here several times that we know of in the United States. And allegedly, they have done that in Russia and other countries as well. So that
Yes.
if those missiles are fired off, at least they will not be carrying active nuclear weapons.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So I think that's great that they're doing that. And they're not interfering individually that I know of with people to change them in that way, but they are at least making it impossible for us to ruin ourselves with nuclear weapons.
Yes. All right,
And
Barbara,
they
we're running out of time right now. So I would like for you to tell everybody how to get in touch with you if they want a regression session. Can you let everybody how to reach you?
okay. Uh, One of the ways to do that is to go to my website, which is Barbara Lamb Regression.com. Barbara Lamb Regression.com. And on that website, there is a place where you can write a message to me, and that gets transferred to my email. If you have a request for a regression, we just want to know more about it. And I will answer those emails. Sometimes it takes me 2 or 3 days. Get particularly busy. But anyway, I will get back to you. Or you can go to my email, which is barbara.lamb, Lamb, dot therapist at gmail.com.
Thanks.
Barbara.lamb at barbara.lamb.therapist at gmail.com. Either way.
Yeah. Thanks,
That's
Millie. She's put it in for you. She's put the information in for you. So thanks
okay.
for doing that. But anyway, thanks everybody for being here. Thanks moderators for making this a safe place. And of course, Barbara, you're so full of information. We love having you here. So thank
Good.
you for being here today. And anyway, everybody, we'll see you. I'll be back again on Saturday and I'll be on with Terry. And so we'll see y'all later. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.